Let's go, girls.
This is how I am rationalizing starting RomComAthon 2.5 hours early. Reason the first. In the majority of the world, it's already Monday. It's already the 22nd of August. So I'm just playing catch up with them. Reason the second. It is literally my readathon. I can do whatever the hell I want with it. I can do anything. I could spend the whole week reading thrillers, but that wouldn't make any sense. So why would I? So I'm going to start. It is now 25 to 10. I'm about to go to sleep. It's Sunday night. But I am going to start already with Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I have to do an admission though. I have been told that this is not necessarily romance. There is a romantic plot to it. Of course there is. They end up getting married. But it's more kind of a coming of age novel. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to go, but I've got my bookmark picked out with the help of some reading sprints this morning with Charr from Thoroughly Enjoy Books. Everybody on the live went for the one with the llama on it rather than one that had coffee on it. Or I think there was one that had a map of the world on it. The llama won it out. So I'm going to get ready to go to bed. I am going to sit in my bed for about a half an hour and I'm going to start this book. Welcome to RomComAthon! You can probably hear the fan in the kitchen in the background. I'm so sorry, I'm trying to cook dinner really quickly for the live show that is starting in 35 minutes to kick off this readathon. And I'm probably going to finish up A Honey Girl when I get there. I listened to some of the audiobook while I was at work, so I think now I'm on chapter 19, I think, and it's going a lot quicker than I had expected. It's going a lot better than I had expected and I'm really enjoying it. Something that I particularly like about this book is that it's not just a romance. It's got a lot of deeper themes in it. It discusses quite a lot about the erasure of black people and people of colour in academia because Grace, having finished her PhD, has applied for a prestigious role in some kind of a company in Portland, in Oregon, but has been completely cast aside. And she's pretty sure that that's because of the colour of her skin, because this company does not champion diversity. I'm really intrigued by this book. I had heard going in that it's not a full, complete set romance, but I'm really enjoying that. The problem is that now I don't know where I want to go. I don't know whether to start with the X Talk or I don't know whether to start with My Killer Vacation. So I put a poll on Instagram and I think I'm going to ask the people when I get onto the live show. I know that Brianna from Four Paws in a Book is going to be with me from the start. Michelle is going to hop in whenever she gets back home. She was in New York for the weekend. And when we're all there and when all of the audience are there, I'm just going to ask them what they think I should read. Let's see what it ends up being. It is the end of day one of RomComAthon, and I have finished a book and ticked off a prompt. So I finished, just before we went onto the live show, I finished Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. As I said, it was such a good read. It wasn't kind of what I was expecting to come into it. I thought it would just be like a fun, light-hearted couple who have gotten married without knowing each other get to know each other, but my goodness, it's much deeper than that. So that is POC or LGBT rep crossed off. Then we go on to the group book, which is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. Again, the bookmark matches the cover, but I might change it to a teal bookmark because this area is all tealy. I'm not sure. I'll figure it out in the morning. I asked on Instagram before I went on to the sprints what book I should read, and this was the runaway winner. It is still the runaway winner. I think it's like 70-30 in this book's favour. I'm enjoying it, but it does have some flaws. There are some things that I'm raising an eyebrow at. The relationship between Taylor and her brother Jude, it feels a little bit too close. You know that episode of Friends where Danny's sister comes to visit and they have like baths together and they wrestle together? It feels like that, but on an emotional level. I'm not rushing to say this phrase, but it almost feels emotional incest. That Taylor is putting all of her expectations to fulfill her emotional needs on him. And I don't love that. I think there should be a little bit more of a distance in that. But that's one thing. The second thing is, I have never met a hero more in need of a glass of water than this man, because I swear to you, he is the thirstiest fucker I've ever seen in a book. I am 100 pages exactly into this book, and these people have almost boned 3 times. I mean, tell me I'm reading a Tessa Bailey without telling me that I'm reading a Tessa Bailey. But I think my main problem with it is not the sex itself, because I love reading a sex scene. It's not even the volume of them, because like I said, I enjoy reading sex scenes when they're done really well. I just don't know if this one is done particularly well. I don't know if it's the dirty talk. I don't know if it's that he is a little bit too coming on too strong. This is definitely a Grumpy Sunshine though. This is 100% Grumpy Sunshine vibes, because this man, everything in the world is his problem, and she is much happier. She's a real like bouncy person, ray of sunshine into the new town. I definitely see the Grumpy Sunshine vibes in this, so I think if that's your favourite trope and you're doing the readathon, it'll fit in there perfectly, so don't worry about that. I am going to keep going with this. Unfortunately, I don't have an audiobook of this. There isn't one on Scribd. There isn't one in my library. So it is going to be a physical only read. But I might go to an audiobook of People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry tomorrow. I'm 90% certain that that is on Scribd. I'm going to have to go and check, but I'm 90% certain. And if it is, great news. I have accidentally also signed up to do the Magical Readathon as a scribe, and one of the prompts that I got for that, I think it's lore, but for an ordinary level, you have to read a book with the colours of your country's flag on it. And if I go get my copy, I'll show you. As you can see, it's very heavily orange, which doesn't really associate with the Irish identity that I have. But we've got the green, we've got loads of green, we've got white, and we've got orange. Could it be more perfect? This update before we go back on camera. Who knows? Let's see. I am about 190 pages, about chapter 16 into my killer vacation. It's a trip. It is a trip. Miles is not at all the kind of guy that I associate with. Also, I didn't read any of this last night because I had the worst stomachache I've had in a really long time. But I did manage to get a good couple of chapters read of Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley, which I started at work yesterday afternoon, and I am so invested in that book. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's got the kind of like cozy bake-off vibes, it's got fake dating trope, it's got really phenomenally, really interesting characters, and I am really enjoying that book. This, I'm not so sure. However, I have got this much left. We are going to do another 2 sprints. I'm on sprints right now with Michelle and Lexie. We're going to do another 2 sprints, and I am 100% going to finish that. in those sprints. And then I'm going to go on to The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. It's going to be my second Rachel Lynn Solomon book. I probably should have started with this one because it's older than Weather Girl, but I'm getting there in the end. It's fine. It is Thursday evening and I had to double check what day it was 4 times because it is one of those weeks where you just have no idea what day of the week you have. Since we have last spoken, I've actually finished 2 whole books and I enjoyed one of them. On Sprints with Michelle and Lexie last night, I finished up My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey, and I would like to ask what the fuck that was that I've read. It's quite an interesting book. I kind of feel sorry for picking it as the group book and inflicting it on so many people. But there was nothing really that I gelled with in this book. Miles, who is the male love interest, is incredibly misogynistic. It's almost like he stalks Taylor. He doesn't really let her just go out and live her life in the town that they're in. He always has to be there kind of watching her go grocery shopping or watching her go down the street and things like that. And that's a little bit too far for me. There's also a very strange dynamic between Taylor and her brother Jude. At times it almost feels emotionally incesty. I may have said this already, but she kind of relies on him a little bit too much, I think. And it's just a little bit too... It's too close. It's creepy. So I did that. That is the group read square. Ticked off. Ready. Done. I also, just before I went to sleep, finished off the audiobook for Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley. I don't even remember if I actually told you that I was reading that book, but I was. And my God, did I enjoy it. It is genuinely like Bake Off in a book. It's very cozy. It's very kind of... I feel like it would be a really great autumn-y book. That kind of vibe it gives, and I don't know why it is that it gives that, but it really gives a good autumny vibe. In this book you have Jada and you have Donovan, and Donovan is a former football player in the US, and Jada is just after coming off of a reality TV show that's kind of like The Bachelor, and she got to the final and she was proposed to by The Bachelor, but she actually turned it down. She didn't think that this is what she wanted out of her life. So she said thanks but no thanks and moved on. Unfortunately, social media is what social media is, and she has gotten a shitstorm of abuse and of harassment and of people kind of coming up to her in the street and saying, you did this guy so dirty and he deserves better than you. All of this stuff that is completely unnecessary and way crossing boundaries. To kind of get Jada back on her feet, she goes back home to San Diego and is talking to her grandmother, who owns a bakery or knows of a bakery that is looking for help, but it's run by Donovan, who is the former football player. To kind of prove her worth, it's a little bit like Act Your Age Eve Brown in the you have to prove your worth before we give you access to your trust fund, and by proving your worth, you're going to hold down a job for 6 months. And then one day, a reporter comes into the shop to do a kind of a piece on Jada and what's her life like now. And Jada just basically goes for Donovan and just plants one on him and says to the reporter, well, obviously I've moved on with my life and this is my partner now and we're working together and we're in a relationship together. So they start fake dating. Aoife's favourite trope. And it was done so well here. I felt like the reason that they were fake dating wasn't really contrived. It wasn't really dumb. It wasn't just done for the book. It felt like, okay, it's a little bit far-fetched, but it's not 100 miles out of the scape of reality. I really enjoyed this book. There's a lot more to this book than just a romance. There's so many more topics that are dealt with this. There's a lot of things about familial duty and how it feels to have so much familial pressure on your shoulders. There's discussions of dyslexia, and I really loved how that was portrayed. I haven't really read a lot of books with dyslexic characters, but I know a lot of people who have dyslexia in my life, and it was really great to know that they are represented on the pages of this book. There's also discussions of gambling addiction and of debt and of harassment and of the kind of toxic narrative that social media can bring into our lives. It's so much deeper than I was expecting it to be. And I know that Michelle has read this, and I know that Rye has read this. I think they buddy read it together. And I know that my friend Roisin has read it, and I know that Roisin enjoyed it. I know that Michelle enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure that Rye enjoyed it, but I'm going to have to ask her just to be sure. I would be very surprised if any of them didn't. And I think that this is going to be like the Written in the Stars series, or like the Brown Sisters series, in that you have one character here, and then there's side characters who are the main character in the next book, and then another side character here is the main character again in the next book, and it'll just kind of snowball on like that. And I have got ideas as to who I think is going to be the next main character, but let's see how that goes out. So that is going to be the fake dating trope. So that's my favorite trope, ticked off and done. Then, this morning when I was on my way to the office for a team event, I started The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This one is going to be for favorite author backlist, which I forgot to put into my TBR video. So I'm going to jiggle my TBR around a little bit, and I knew that that was going to happen. I knew that there would be books that would fit into this square or fits better into this and that and all that. So I am 22 pages in. I didn't read a whole lot of it actually on the way home from the office because I was just catching up on things that I had missed throughout the day. I was catching up on some RomComAthon Instagram posts and just reposting stuff and interacting with people. And on the side of that, it has been so uplifting and so heartwarming for me to see so many people engaging with this and to see so many people getting involved and sharing the stories and sharing their TBRs and sharing their thoughts on the books that they've just finished. Michelle and I were talking, and we think that the reason that this has kind of caught on so much is that the world is on fire right now. So this is just giving people what we need. It's just giving people a little bit of an escape. It's just giving people something that they know they can look forward to. They know that when they pick up the pages of their book, that it's going to end up happily. Okay, there might be the little bit of a slump, there might be a little bit of this third act breakup, but you know that everything is going to be okay by the end of this book. And I think that that's something that we're looking for in the world right now. In that we don't know when it's going to be okay again. We don't know when the war in Ukraine is going to be over. We don't know when inflation is going to be over and prices are going to be a little bit more affordable anymore. We don't know when global warming and the heat waves that we've had over the summer are going to kind of dissipate and the temperatures are going to start to sink a little bit further. We don't know when any of this stuff is going to happen, but with the books, we have got some level of certainty. So I think that's why people have kind of jumped on this with us, this kind of crazy idea that I had one evening of why don't we just read romance books for a week and then get other people to join in too. I think people just want something that's gonna make them feel a little bit better about life at the moment. But anyway, that's that rambling from my brain aside. This book is really good so far. I did an internship in a radio station. I've actually done a couple of them because when I was younger, I had aspirations of being a breakfast presenter. That didn't happen. Now I work as a kind of a print journalist as opposed to a broadcast journalist. But this is such a good book, and it has got kind of mentions of things that I would know. It's got mentions of things like driving the desk that I would have done on a couple of shows back in college radio. Or it's got mentions of things like press releases having ends at the bottom. Like that is referenced about 20,000 times in this book so far, and I really enjoy it. This is enemies to lovers and also fake dating, but not fake dating fake exes. Make it make sense. It works in the book. It works. And so far it's really good. I think I'm gonna dry my hair before I go to bed, and then I'm gonna get up to, I'm on chapter 2 or 3, I think. So I think I might get up to maybe the end of this chapter and the end of the next one and see where we go from there tomorrow.
would be awake and looking anything like a human at this hour on a Saturday morning. And that reason is that in 17 minutes, me, Merv, and Lily are starting some reading sprints on my channel. And I'm also going to have some games that we're going to play in the like in-betweeny parts. So let me show you one of the games that I have put together. It's okay to show you this now because the sprints are over, but I have put together a list of like some popular contemporary romance books and translated their titles into German. Not like the actual German title, but directly translated across. And they're going to have to guess what the English title is when I read out the German one. So I'm going to be showing my German language skills on the internet for everybody to see. And I've also got another game planned of like, are they still together? So we're going to have like a mini discussion of couples from contemporary romance books that were together by the end of their book, which generally happens. What the fuck is this? What is going on here? And we're going to have a talk about whether or not they're still together after the book. So like maybe a year later or 5 years later or 10 years later. Do you think that they're still together, married, kids, the whole shebang? I'm excited. But I hope that the same thing that happened on Monday doesn't happen here, where halfway through my internet just completely shot the bed and kicked me out of my own sprints. We're not going to have that energy again today. Sunday morning. It is the penultimate day of the readathon. I have about 150, I would say, pages left of the X Talk to go. And I think I know that when I'm finished this, I'm going to move on to People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. That's going to be a reread. But as I said, I kind of want to fit it in for the Magical Readathon as well. I need to have something that kind of works for the Irish flag colours. Fits in perfectly. Today, however, is going to be the treat yourself day. That's one of the squares that's on the board, and I am going to go absolutely out of my mind with this. I did already do the treat yourself on Friday. I got myself a takeaway. I went into an Indian place and got a takeaway that I had Friday night and also that I had Saturday afternoon for like lunch. But today the weather is supposed to be absolutely awful. I think it's going to be about 23 degrees, which is a lot lower than what it's been in the last few weeks. The last few weeks we've been battling with like 34, 35, 37. And that kind of big, like 12-degree temperature drop just means one thing. It's time to have a roast chicken dinner. I haven't had a roast chicken dinner on a Sunday, I think, since the last time I was at home. Not even since the last time I was at home, actually. I think since when I was at home at Christmas, which is now 8 months ago. So it's time. I've earned this. So on Friday I brought 2 chicken legs. I've also got some potatoes. I've got gravy. I've got like a carrots and peas mixed up together, kind of like a can. And I am going to make roasties. I'm going to make mash. I am going to make the biggest fill the plate chicken dinner that I can find. I think I might also have stuffing somewhere in my kitchen press. I'm not entirely certain, but if I do, I'm going to put that in too. And I am going to have the time of my life. Also, before I go to bed in the evening, if I've gotten this book finished, and that's going to be my treat myself for when I've done that, I'm going to watch You've Got Mail. It is my favorite rom-com of all time. I don't always fuck with the ending. I don't love the ending, but Tom and Meg have got the best chemistry that I've seen in such a long time. And I need to go back into that kind of like autumn mode. And there is nothing like autumn in New York. And I just need to get back into that little swing of things. It is about 8:30 at the moment. We have had the live show for My Killer Vacation. That was at 6 and it was actually so good. There were so many discussions about what this book was, about the characters, about chapter 18 and specifics, about the relationship between Taylor and Miles, about the relationship between Taylor and her brother. It was a really great discussion and I'm really glad that we decided to do that at the end of the week. Throughout the day, before and after the live show and after I got out of the shower, I finished the X Talk and I absolutely loved this book. This is such a great representation of like local radio, community radio, and that's something that I have got a little bit of experience with. I used to work in a community radio station as a volunteer. I did some internships with a local radio station back at home when I was like 16, 17. And it was really great to have like that behind the scenes of a radio station. But there's also some really great discussions in this book about anxiety and about loneliness and about feeling that everyone else in your life is moving on and is in different places than where you are. And feeling like you have to play catch up with them and that you are not as good as these people that are in your life because you're not at the same level. I will say though, something that I didn't love is that there was a lot made of the fact that Shay is older than Dominic and is probably only older than him by about 5 years. Grand scheme of things, that's not the biggest age gap that I've seen in a relationship, and I don't really think it should have been made as big of a deal as it was. But overall, we had a great time. That has ticked off the square for backlist book, because I had not read that book yet, but Rachel Lynn Solomon is an author that I discovered this year, and I really loved Weather Girl. So I had got really high hopes and really high expectations for the X Talk, and thankfully those were met. Also today I ticked off the square for comfort food, because I made the best roast chicken dinner that I've had in such a long time. I do not want to blow my own trumpet, but the roast potatoes that I made were out of this world good. And now, because I said this would be my little treat when I had finished the X Talk, I am going to hook up my projector. I'm going to project onto the wall that is right beside my bed, and I have got some fairy lights on there, and I'm going to make it super, super cozy. And I am going to tick off the free space by watching You've Got Mail for the rest of the night. It's time for autumn to begin by now. It is the final day of RomComAthon, and I am more than slightly bereft, because I have genuinely had a fantastic week just reading feel-good books, just reading romance books, just reading books where I know everything is going to turn out okay. We are going to close it off this evening with some sprints at Michelle's channel. We're going to go for a couple of hours at least. We're going to keep going for maybe 3 or 4 sprints. And I think it's just going to be a really nice, really chill way to relax and say goodbye to the readathon. And in the live show last night, we had some ideas about bringing it back next year, maybe a little bit earlier in the year. But if you have enjoyed this week, we would love to see you there again next year. We would really love to see everybody reading. We've really loved watching everybody put their TBRs together and take off all of the books that they wanted to read. It has been such a great week. I have got one last book that I'm going to try and fit in, and I know I'm not going to finish it all in one day, but I have got People We Meet on Vacation. This is, I think, the US cover, I'm not very sure, and it's a little bit of a chunky one. Oh, and I got this as a gift from my friend Claire, I'm assuming for my birthday last year, because she mentions having a rough time. I know that this is a really great book. I have read this already and I really enjoyed it, and I think this is my favorite of the Emily Henry books, but I think I need to read it again just to make certain. But also, when I read it last year, travel wasn't as easily accessible as it is now, so I was enjoying so much reading about Poppy and Alex going to all of these places around the world that I knew were a little bit out of reach for me at the time. So maybe that element of it is going to change so far this time. Thank you so much for taking part. Thank you for watching this vlog. Thank you for just being a part of it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.